Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be working on making some fabric coasters, quilted fabric coasters I should say, using some pre-cut charm squares as our starting point. So as you can see, what we have here is some charm pack squares which measure 5 inches by 5 inches. That's just how they come. So that's going to be our backing fabric. So we're going to set that aside. And we're going to take another piece of fabric, which is what is going to be on the front of the coaster, and that starts out as 5 by 5 as well, but we want to cut that down to be about, let's see, 5. I think we ended up with 4 by 4. Yep, that's what it looks like. So we're going to cut it down to 4 inches by 4 inches, so that we have room for the backing fabric to fold over and be the binding for this. And I'm not cutting this exactly out of the corner of this piece of fabric. I'm kind of fussy cutting it so I can get the clouds that I want in the frame, as it were, of the coaster. So I'm just gonna cut that down to 4 inches by 4 inches, and my rotary cutter is getting stuck there a little bit, so I probably need a new blade, but yeah. And there again, I'm just showing that it's 4 inches wide by 4 inches tall, and that's going to be an inch smaller all around than the backing fabric is. And then we're going to need some quilt batting, or you can probably use fleece or just some really lofty fabric for our batting inside of the coaster, and we want this to be the same size as the front piece of fabric, so that's going to be at 4 inches by 4 inches as well. And as you can see, I already had one cut out, so I'm just showing you how big it is. So now we have all 3 pieces for our quilt, our quilted coaster, and we want this fabric to be wrong side up. So the right side, the pretty side, is facing down. We're going to put the batting square smack dab in the middle of that, making sure it's evenly in from the edges of the backing fabric. And then we're going to put our top fabric on top with the pretty side facing up. And that is going to make our quilt sandwich. So we're going to have 3 layers: the backing, the batting, and the top. And I'm just going to go ahead and pin that in place. So you could just leave the pins in there and use that as your basting, but I prefer to not have pins in the way when I'm hand sewing, and I'm just going to hand sew these because it's just kind of meditative. So I put some pins in there to hold everything in the right spot, and I just really quickly folded over the edges to make sure I was going to look how I wanted, with the backing being the binding. And then I'm going to take my needle and thread and do a basting stitch, which is just a long loose stitch around all the edges of this, just to hold everything in place in my little mini quilt sandwich, as it were. Well, to make sure nothing shifts around when I get to doing the actual quilting. Like I said, you can leave pins in here if you'd prefer. I just prefer to have it hand basted. And I didn't cut this thread to length beforehand because I wasn't sure exactly how much I would want to use, so I just kept it attached to the spool, as you can kind of see up there in the corner. And I'm just pulling the thread through as I go and evening it out, just so I can get the right amount of thread. Totally unnecessary. You can go ahead and cut the thread to whatever length is going to work for you. I just didn't feel like doing it that day, so I didn't. And it looks like I'm almost done with the basting here. And then the next step is going to be ironing, that's a hard word today, ironing the back fabric over so we get a nice sharp crease on that. Oh, and yeah, cut off your thread. It doesn't need to be knotted or anything since it's just basting and it's just there temporary. So here's what it's looking like so far. Got a nice miniature quilt sandwich here. And it looks like I have already forgotten the order of events because the next step is not ironing the backing over. Of course not, we gotta quilt this thing first. So I'm just getting some hand quilting thread, put a knot in it, and I'm just going to outline these clouds. So I'm going to start putting my needle in from the edge, just in between the layers so you can't see the knot. And I'm just going to do a simple quilting stitch, which is also known as a running stitch. So you're just weaving your needle in and out. I'm just going to do that around all the edges of these clouds just to make them pop up a little more, make it a little more 3D, and also the main important part, keeping the layers all stuck together so it's one piece and it's a nice little quilt instead of just random pieces of fabric. So going ahead and doing that, and let's see, you can kind of see on the back the stitches, and I might just play some music in the background here until we get it all done, because there's not much to voice over. You're just doing lots of little stitches over and over again. Okay, and here's how it's looking with all the quilting done. As you can see, I outlined the white clouds just with that quilting stitch, and you can see it on the back a little bit. The sliding's not the best. I have some video sections later on that show the 3D-ness of it better, but that's what we got for quilting on this one. I'm not gonna make up a couple of different ones. They're all gonna have different quilting, and I will show you that in a little bit. But right now we're just gonna go ahead and iron this. Kind of, I wouldn't say unnecessary, but you don't have to iron it at this step if you don't want to. I just prefer to iron things as much as possible when working, because I feel that it has a better end result, because it keeps things more crisp and in the exact spots you want them. So I'm just ironing my little pieces flat. And then I'm gonna do what I talked about before, which is ironing the back fabric towards the front, so I can get a nice sharp crease along that edge. To be honest, I only did this on a couple of the quilted coasters, because I did make I'll have to see at the end how many it is, but I think it's at least 6. So I ended up just rolling the fabric over as I was sewing. That way it just kind of, it was a little bit faster since I didn't have to do this ironing step. And basically what we're going to accomplish with this backing fabric folding over to the front is it's going to be our binding instead of using a separate bias binding or just a regular straight binding. So we're just going to fold that over once, iron it in place, and then I will go back in when I'm sewing it down, and I'm going to roll it over again, so it's going to be folded over twice towards the front. So that way all the raw edges are enclosed and we have a nice self-binding. And yep, so on to the next step. Let's see here. Oh, as you can see, I'm testing out to make sure it's gonna look good with that binding rolled over. And so far I'm liking it. So here I went ahead and folded it where I had ironed it with a crease and then rolled it over a little more to the inside so that it's the binding edge. And I'm putting some pins in it, as you can see there. And like I said, this was how I did the first one or two, and then I switched to just kind of folding things over and holding it in place and just stitching as I went along instead of pinning everything down ahead of time. I don't know, I guess I got into the rhythm of doing it and didn't feel like putting pins in. But if you're a little scared of sewing things without things pinned in place, for sure go ahead and do that. It's not going to slow you down considerably. It's just I don't like when my threads get tangled around pins while I'm sewing, so I try to keep I try to use the least amount of pins as necessary when I'm working on stuff like this, especially for the little hand sewing stuff. And you could totally do all of this by machine. Like, you could machine quilt this, you could top stitch the binding in place. I did do that on one of the little coasters, and you'll probably see that at the end. But I didn't really like how it looked with the machine I was using. The machine I was using just, it's not working right now. I needed to mess with it and get it fixed. But so that's why I switched to hand sewing all this, because I just didn't have a working machine at the current moment. So yeah. And I will probably fade out to music again and be back when we're done folding all this over. Now that we've got all that binding folded over and pinned down, we're gonna take some thread. I used a matching blue thread, and we're gonna put the thread on our needle, tie a knot in the end, and then we're just gonna start doing, I always forget what this is called. It's probably just called like a slip stitch or something. I'll have to look it up and put on screen what it is. But anyways, you're just gonna come up from under your binding, and you're just gonna take a small stitch just over the edge of the binding into the quilted piece and push it along to the next spot you want to come up at. And you want to come up right on the edge of the binding, so only catching like a thread or two to make it as invisible as possible. And you could sew through all the layers here to the back. I didn't feel like I needed to because I had quilted all the layers together already. So when I'm stitching down this binding, I'm really just stitching the binding to that top piece of fabric and the batting. I'm not letting the stitches go into the back side of the fabric at all, just for a cleaner look, I guess you could say. When we get to the corner, I'm just going to anchor that corner with a stitch, and then gonna come over to the edge where the fold of the binding is, and I'm just gonna put a couple stitches there to hold it in place. You don't have to do that part. I just feel like it looks a little better. You could just anchor at the corner and continue sewing on, and it would probably be fine. But yeah, we're just gonna keep doing that all the way around the edge, and as you can see there, See those tiny little stitches? You really don't want to be able to see the stitches. You want it to be pretty invisible. So after we got the binding sewed down, oh, and if you can tell here, this is the one that I top stitched, and I really just did not like how it looked. But anyways, for demonstration purposes, then we're gonna go ahead and iron this down and just get it nice and flat, and that's basically it. You're done. So just go ahead and I'm gonna iron all of the ones that I did, and then I'm gonna show them all to you, get a nice little peek at them. Oh, and if you're wondering why I switched irons, it's because I picked up this mini iron at Walmart, and it was like, I think 15 bucks, and it was so tiny, and I was just like, it can't be too bad for 15 bucks. So I picked it up, and it works decent. I haven't put any water in it because I'm always terrified of irons spitting water out, so I've just used it with a spray bottle, as you can kind of see from some of these clips. But it's been working good so far, and it's just super lightweight. I still love my big iron. I need to hook up the stand for it because it's a drip feed iron. It has like a water reservoir. It kind of looks like an IV stand, because it's got like this tank that hangs up in the air, and there's a tube that comes down that takes the water down to the iron, so you have basically endless steam. But I don't have that set up in my sewing room right now, so I just am using this little iron in the meantime. I quilted this one in like a circular design from the center out, and it was really bubbly, so this one just really shows how well ironing it gives it a nice and finished look, because it was all bubbly, as you could see before. And now once I have it all ironed, look how flat that is, flat as a pancake, and you can see all those tiny little quilting stitches. Really fun. Okay, and here's the big reveal. This is all the ones I made. This one was the first one I made. I didn't do any quilting on it. This was the one done by machine. I just top stitched that binding down. Not my favorite, but it's functional. And then I have this little gray and white clouds with this yellow fabric. The fabric says like sunshine and stuff like that on it. I thought it was really cute with the kind of stormy looking fabric. And then we got this like eye looking fabric, and I just outlined each of those little things so it'd look nice. And then we got this floral, and I just outlined all the flowers on that. Very cute. And then this like zigzag worm, wiggly worm looking one. I just did straight lines on that because I really didn't want to quilt all those curves. And then again, I outlined the circles in that middle square-ish part. And then this one is the spiral quilted one. Tons of quilting stitches on this one. I love this one. It feels so nice, and like, oh, look at those stitches just pop. And then this one I did like a X design meeting in the center, like with lots of like little triangles that form an X in the center, and I just really liked how that one turned out. So yeah, that's all of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total. Okay, and thank you guys for watching, and I will see you again hopefully sometime soon.